Once upon a time, there were three brothers who were each into different types of video games. The first brother liked highly polished cinematic adventures with lots of cutscenes and voice acting, so he played nothing but the latest AAA titles on his PlayStation 5. The second brother lamented that modern games have forgotten about the basics and good gameplay, so he collected old games and hardware, and refused to play anything but challenging retro classics. The third brother was an idiot, and he played 35 Metroidvania demos. Nextfest on Steam always finds ways to surprise me with games I don't think I would have wishlisted or maybe even heard of without having the opportunity to take them for a test drive. Often, a game that doesn't look like much turns out to be pretty incredible. Looks can be deceiving. And on the flip side of that, sometimes a game seems great in screenshots and stuff, but once I get hands-on with it, it feels like complete garbage to play. Which is also a positive, because it saves me a ton of money. And as Nextfest comes to a close, I had the chance this weekend to play 35 Metroidvanias. Nobody has time for that. Except me, I guess. If I just stay up all night and day and lose touch with reality. I'm gonna need to get a refill on my anxiety meds. But still, I decided to play every single Metroidvania demo I could find, in alphabetical order. So I can tell you a bit about each one, how they feel to play, and more than likely why they kind of suck, because most of them probably will. But in theory, we'll also spend at least some time with games that are actually worth looking forward to this year. So let's go. Starting off with a game that makes me feel almost nothing at all. There's nothing wrong with Afterimage. In fact, it seems like a good game with a lot to praise. It's solid, it's well produced, its art is very detailed and vibrant, and it's just not for me at all. It has super basic combat and movement, which can sometimes be a big positive, but it doesn't seem very well suited to the enemy and level design here. Your character sometimes feels like she's in the wrong game. Still, it's only a few small tweaks away from feeling pretty good, so the bigger reason this game isn't going on my wishlist is just that it's kind of safe and boring for me.
Wanderers! We must have missed a few corpses after all. Be careful, I'll help too.
I also find this kind of voice acting mildly grating, and I don't think we need to stop and explain what's happening every 30 seconds, but that's just me. If your pillow has a name, I'm sorry, I don't know how that got in the script. I mean, if you're into anime, you might really like this one. I would probably think it was great if the girl's face was partly melted off and the floating AI companion was a bit of sentient moldy cheese or something. Oh hey look, this one's super adorable too! But it has a real character of its own. Afterimage had a very generic vibe to it, but Astra feels more unique. The hand-drawn art here is a little amateurish, and so is the programming, honestly, but I'll take that any day so long as it's got some personality. Gameplay-wise, Astra feels quite good, with this one versatile little move that makes you glow and twirl and activate switches and hover momentarily. You can attack in 4 directions and use downward strikes to bounce on things, which forces a comparison to Hollow Knight, if the masks on these creatures' faces hadn't done that already. But this is a case of feeling inspired by, not cloned from. The game doesn't have a release date yet, but that's probably a good thing because it's a little too rough around the edges right now. But when it's done, I think I'll have to take another look. Speaking of rough around the edges, I don't know what I was expecting from a game named after a button that returns you to the title screen in most games, as if this one's self-aware enough to know that the only way to win is to stop playing. But it turns out to be a game about a wolf. It has a very retro feeling, which I quite enjoy actually, but that's one mark in the pro column and the rest of the game in the toilet. This thing was made with a fundamental misunderstanding of level design and what makes video games fun in the first place, and that's hard to overcome. So even if the game fixes the slew of bugs that plagued my attempt to play it, it will still bob in the water under last night's shepherd's pie, at best. There's this one guy on my Discord server who only seems to play games where he gets to be a dog of some kind, and I guess I might recommend this to him because you do feel quite dog-like, but for everybody else, it's dog shit. This is Beast's Rampage, as far as I can tell. After wrestling with the options menu for a bit and realizing I was not going to be able to change anything because the game had disabled my mouse and the menus are designed only to work with a mouse, I decided to give up and start the game as it was. And this is that. And man, if you want to know what I actually do look for in a game aesthetically and tonally, it's pretty much Beast's Rampage, this right here. The only slight negative is that you can't move or do anything, but I don't mind that much. I just like the feeling of this. Highly recommended as a post-vaporwave screensaver. Don't know about a game though. This game has no sound, so I'll be inserting an original tune of mine here. Destinesia seems like it may possibly be a sequel to Beast Rampage, based on the gameplay of there not being any gameplay. And if it's the sequel, they've improved the menus and you can actually click things now. Although, I don't think that's how you spell controls. But the game itself is very true to the original in that you can't move much. I could walk around at first, but once I opened up the in-game map, there was no way to close it again or regain control of my character, even after shutting down Steam and restarting. But man, that music, that's great. Who did that music? I'm not sure what the name of this game actually is because it's in Chinese on its Steam page, but I'm going with DragonBell Z because that's funniest to me. The XI part is usually shown capitalized, so it may well be Dragon Ball 11. But what's important is that once you find the menu option to change the language to English, the game's it's not bad. It's another Hollow Knight style Metroidvania, and the art and animations here, while perhaps too sweet for a mouthful of cavities, are really well done. You have a little character floating along with you because one character's no longer enough, and what's up with that trend? But this one can grab stuff and fling you around, which feels pretty good. From the demo, I don't think I got to see enough of the game to decide on it, because it did feel good, but it wasn't particularly engaging. The enemies don't seem to want to hurt you at all, and I might include the bosses in that, but assuming the difficulty curve just starts out a little bit flat, this game could be worth checking out. This is the first one going on my wish list. Elypse is a game that shows how effective it can be to just find a couple of good mechanics that work together well and build a game around that. In this case, we've got a kind of Celeste-like dash with multiple charges that refresh when you touch the ground. So in the demo, you can dash twice before having to reset. And what this does is it makes really simple level designs really fun to play through, because movement itself is novel and interesting. You almost can't make a bad game from that base. And this game seems not bad. Instead, it seems good. It's appropriately challenging. There are moments where you'll go, oh, come on, how was I supposed to react to that? But checkpoints are close together and you don't seem to lose anything when you die, so who cares? The game is forgiving enough in that way that it can actually stand to be a whole lot less fair and could probably amp up the difficulty beyond what most players are comfortable with, without necessarily making them want to give up. This game is exactly my cup of tea, and I'm really excited to see what the rest of it looks like after having had a great time with what is a pretty short demo. And so yeah, there's also this. I'm not sure this is actually a Metroidvania, but I'm also not sure what it is, or if it's anything, so it might as well be whatever it says it is, or whatever it wants to be, or everything, all at once, like the confluence of multiple streams of reality. I'd like to spend more time with it and unlock a whole new part of my brain, man, but I have a lot of games to get through here, so my review of Extreme Evolution Drive to Divinity is that it's exactly what it looks like. Trust me, if you're the person holding the controller, it does not suddenly make more sense. This is the most Metroid Prime sounding menu I've sat and vibed with in a long time. Since Metroid Prime, in fact, which I last played less than a year ago, but that's not the point. The point is that Metroid Prime 4 is finally out, and it might not be exactly what we were expecting, but I think I can live with this. And if you think I'm joking, I mean, I'm definitely adding this game to my wishlist. It's kinda janky, but look, just look at all those intangible qualities. The future project might not have the best movement or shooting mechanics, but it does have a slightly surreal feeling that makes me feel like I've stepped into an alternate reality, allowing me to cast aside preconceived notions of how things should or should not be, and suspend my disbelief well enough to become fully immersed in this rhinoceros-looking guy right here. Really, if you're watching this channel for game recommendations, you deserve to know this about me. I value whatever makes this game feel unique above whatever makes Horizon Zero Dawn feel so goddamn generic. This game's like a 10 out of 10 for me, but probably like a 2 out of 10 for everybody else. So now you just need to figure out whether or not you're me. I've been hearing about this game for a while, but this was my first chance to actually play it, and I have to say, yeah, pretty good little game you got there. It's a beautifully crafted pixel art game that looks and feels in a lot of ways similar to Dead Cells, which is a very good thing, though it's not a roguelike. The part of the game showcased in the demo has very tight level design, with one main save point that you unlock shortcuts back to, which is probably my favorite way of handling interconnected maps within zones in Metroidvanias. The only thing I didn't love was that this game, and I guess it's kind of a tutorial, but it's extraordinarily heavy-handed with the story and explaining every nuance of opening the start menu and moving your cursor to the right and spending a point to unlock a node and give it a little shake and put the thing down, flip it and reverse it, and that's how you do the hokey poke my eyes out and let me play the goddamn game! You never really get the chance to zone out and enter a flow state with the demo because of the constant interruptions. And I hope the full game isn't like that, because everything else about it looks pretty superb. I don't think this is a Metroidvania, guys, and I do not have time for these 1996 ass tank controls right now. I don't see any evidence that this one's a Metroidvania either. I guess it could be, if the level design changes radically after the demo, but I will say that this Melee Mega Man action platformer is fun as all get out, so I don't mind adding a couple superfluous sentences here to showcase it for a moment longer. What did you have for lunch? I had leftover chicken in the fridge I had to use up, so I made 2 chicken wraps, and I told myself I was just gonna eat one now and have the other one for dinner maybe, but I wound up eating them both in one sitting. And then a bucket of gelato.
Time for some demon hunting. Yeah.
It seems like the Castlevania side of the Metroidvania genre has really been asserting itself over the past couple of years. And it's not normally my cup of tea because it isn't a cup of tea, it's a cup of crystal meth, and every time you take a sip from it you hear that sound effect, and all of the sex you've had in your life is erased from the memories of your partners and you become a virgin again. But other than that, Grim Guardian's Demon Purge is actually kind of a really good game. I feel dirty saying it, but this game is so confidently over the top with its style that it almost circles past cringe and becomes charming again. But even if it didn't, the gameplay is just rock solid, super fun and satisfying. You're able to switch between 2 characters for a very diverse moveset, and you'll need to utilize all of that to succeed. It's not going on my wish list, but if you're not as curmudgeonly and hateful as I am, it might belong on yours. It's not often that a game comes along that surprises and confounds me with its gameplay, and impresses me with its ambition. The Last Case of Benedict Fox doesn't feel like just another indie Metroidvania. Within a few minutes of launching the demo, it was obvious to me that this was going to be a whole new gaming experience. This game's a Metroidvania in its map design, to be sure, but it does not seem to feel any obligations to adhere to the game's conventions of simple, fast, and skillful combat. Instead, you're collecting clues and information, solving puzzles that require you to actually pay attention and recall the things you've picked up and discovered previously. I just hope the game can balance its combat in an appropriate and satisfying way, given the challenges of doing so in a game where combat seems to be somewhat scarce. There's a limit to what you can ask a player to do when you aren't giving them a lot of practice, but the designers here do seem to know what they're doing. The only other potential pitfall I noticed was that I found myself looking out for contextual button prompts on the screen instead of really appreciating and becoming immersed in the environments, but the world is beautiful and interesting enough that I think I'll take the time to stop and smell the corpses where I can. The Last Case of Benedict Fox feels like a must-buy game already. A bit of a different feeling for this one. It's a game that plays better with a keyboard and mouse, with kind of Noida controls. The demo sets you up with a set of different guns to play with, and it's all very basic and exactly what you would expect, but for one thing, which is this little rock that you can throw and teleport to. That ends up being a pretty interesting mechanic, and I especially liked it against the only boss I saw, to teleport through one of his attacks. I didn't beat the boss though, or get any further than that, because he just sort of stops taking damage at some point. This game is worth your attention, but it's not worth me trying to fight the boss more than twice, because I've got 20 games left to play, dear God. I'll pass on wishlisting Lilium Reach, just because it doesn't look like it's anything too special to me, but I truly did not hate it. If you ever wanted to know what garbage looks and plays like, Mislight is mislit. Got him. But really, it's kinda dark in here. I cranked up the brightness and this was still the best that I could get out of it, which I guess is the point. Light is the gimmick of this game. You shoot beams of it from your flashlight to kill your enemies, and you take damage to your fear meter instead of a health bar. But all we've really done here is renamed your health bar and your gun. It doesn't actually mean anything. And the end result is a pretty bad Metroidvania built around the concept of the player wishing it wasn't so dark. Well, this game is different. I don't think I can actually show it to you. Maybe the top half of the screen should be fine. You know, the best Metroidvanias are about finding a balance between challenging and rewarding the player, and this one starts off with the reward right up front. I know at least one of you has decided to buy it already, but I'm gonna give it a long, hard look first. Oh, it sucks. That's a relief. You're just a naked chick running around, barely able to slap. You have to stand like a pixel-perfect distance from your target for this attack to register at all. Still though, I'll just skip the enemies and streak to the end for another round with... Oh. Let's try that again. Wait, no, nothing's happening. Is my controller dead? I'm hitting the button, it just isn't... Here, listen. I'm hitting it. As fast as I can. Over and over. Faster. Harder. I just can't quite get there. This has never happened to me before. You know, the second half of this list is shaping up to be somewhat less impressive than the first. That can be the trouble with alphabetical order. We blew our load early, so to speak. Now, what's left? Omega Warp? This game seems to be a fan remake of Metroid Fusion, but the fans in this case are a couple of goldfish who only watch the game from within the warped walls of their fishbowl, have no idea how human walking works, and have just installed a trial version of Macromedia Flash Studio. Well, it can't get any worse. Maybe there's something left in the bottom half here that will make taking 2 days off from my regular job of playing video games all the time worth it. And you know, maybe I'm grading on a curve now, but this isn't that bad. Pandamonium's a 2.5D platformer with janky movement and janky combat and what seems to be a highly linear map design if it wants to call itself a Metroidvania, but on the other hand, I kind of enjoyed my time with it. I'm not saying it's actually good, but movement at least feels pretty nice, even if it doesn't always work very well. And it's just different. We already know how much I value uniqueness. Look, I wouldn't spend more than $5 on this, but I think I might spend $5 on this. Alright, let's pick up the pace here a bit. We've got a lot to get through. This one has Prime in the name because it's another bad version of Metroid Prime, but it's a so bad it's good version, with unique combat and puzzle mechanics and a personality that could see it find some success as a very niche game, but it needs a ton of refinement. It borders on unplayable at times. This is most certainly not a Metroidvania. An adorable Japanese game where you play a fuzzy, frolicking forest friend. It's everything I ever wanted. But actually it kind of is. It might not be exactly my style, but the gameplay here is really strong. You create blocks that let you bounce around and break other blocks, and the demo showcases a fantastic set of platforming puzzles. It's really fun and feels natural very quickly. I couldn't even get either of my gamepads to work, but I enjoyed it thoroughly even playing on my keyboard. This is going on the wishlist for me. This game's basically a parody of Zelda 2, which is not the most popular Zelda game, but for all of its problems, it wasn't that bad. And this game plays moderately smoother than its inspiration and seems to be more forgiving, too. If you can stomach the unabashedly stupid humor, and you probably can if you're watching my YouTube channel, and if you like retro games, this is probably worth a look. This is a game I've been hearing about a lot on the indie games subreddit lately, and it looks great in the short clips and stuff the developer posts. Playing it though, it just doesn't quite feel right. I love the art style and the atmosphere, but the way you navigate the world by clicking invisible doors in random locations makes the map feel very disconnected. And the combat is serviceable, but tedious. You'll die because you're taking risks out of sheer boredom. It reminds me a lot of a game from a couple years ago called The Eternal Castle, and suffers from some of the same problems, which is a reference that approximately 2 people will understand. Return is a game that I might actually buy, but it's hard for me to recommend it to anybody else without a notable increase to the fun factor. Ah, I'd been wondering where the Ori-inspired games were hiding. I understand it's hard to be completely original, but the Metroidvania genre is starting to feel pretty creatively stale, and I don't think this game's gonna help much. Aside from some stylistic inspiration, Rin shares Ori's extremely floaty movement and ranged attacks that automatically target the nearest enemy for you. I don't love these things, but I can see how games like this draw in fans that might not otherwise be interested in Metroidvanias. While there might not be a high degree of difficulty, there's a lot of depth, with spells you can modify and swap around as fits your playstyle. I think Rin could be a good game, but for me it feels half-baked. The environments are alright, but the animations are severely lacking. Combat mechanics seem interesting and versatile, but in practice, the enemies aren't designed to make you do anything but spam the magic missile button. I also had some severe frame rate issues that grew progressively worse as I got further into the demo. I can't really see the potential for this one to be anything but a worse Ori. Now this is what I'm looking for. Rusted Moss brings new gameplay to the table, and while its inspirations are obvious, primarily Celeste, they don't feel the same at all. The central mechanic here is swinging from an extremely bouncy rope that you can attach to patches of moss. It's really tricky to master, but I respect that. You don't see a lot of games that recommend keyboard and mouse controls either, but it's necessary here for fast and precise movement and shooting, as both your grapple hook and your gun are aimed with the mouse. By the end of my time with the demo, I still felt like I'd barely learned to walk yet, and had just scratched the surface on the platforming and combat strategies that are possible with that one simple tool. The game feels solid, fairly polished for an indie, and it's definitely being added to my wishlist.
They're gone.
I have an idea for a game. It'll feel bad to move, and if you try to do it anyway, I'll keep stopping you by chucking dialogue boxes at your face.
It's all burning. I don't see any movement.
I did.
Shut up!
Celeste with a gun. It's a fine idea, though I'm personally holding out for Celeste with a gunbrella later in the year. But maybe this'll tide me over. A Sister's Journey looks and feels great at first, but oddly, it quickly started to get a little annoying for me. I think the difficulty's a little bit high for a demo. I felt like I wasn't being given the space to learn the movement and combat mechanics, and as the result, the most efficient and enjoyable way for me to deal with each room was to try to get out of it as soon as possible. Your mileage may vary, but for a game pretty heavily aping the style and partly the movement of another game, one that's notorious for its incredibly smooth difficulty curve that can turn any hapless gaming enthusiast into an absolute esports god mode champion, it feels like a miss. A Sister's Journey feels like DLC for people who've already beaten Celeste, where they've added a gun and for some reason increased the annoying. Still, a solid set of mechanics and a very polished package. The settings menu shows that they are certainly willing to bend on difficulty, and they've put a ton of work into this game. For me, it's one that looks very promising, and I'll check it out again on release to see if it's a little bit more fun. There's a face only a mother could love, and you can call me mommy. Skelethrone is a 2D Souls-like with a kind of retro feel to it, with a lot of weak enemies just sort of spammed along your path without too much consideration. It looks a bit stupid, but it plays fine enough, I guess. I'm a little bored of this combat in 2D though, but hey, I didn't like Blasphemous either, so take me with a grain of salt. And Skelethrone, I hope you don't mind if I borrow your music for the next few games. We need to get through them, and you're setting the right vibe for how I'm feeling right now about my decision to do 35 game reviews in 2 days. I don't know what this is, but I don't think it's a Metroidvania. I kind of want to keep playing it because it seems interesting and it's definitely different from what I've been doing, but I have to press on. Holy pants, this game feels great. I haven't played the original Teslagrad or even heard much about it, so I went into this one looking at the art style and thinking, yeah, okay, what's this, a Metroidvania for girls or something? But I am a stupid man with a simple mind, and I know better now. Teslagrad 2 is a much more puzzle-oriented game, and at least in the demo, you don't really fight anything, you just run away. And the set of moves you're given to run away range from a simple dash to the powers of attraction and repulsion through a pair of magnetic boots. It's a very satisfying and clever way to navigate, switching between the floor and ceiling, weaving in dashes and jumps. The movement isn't completely fluid, which is a bit of a shame, but it felt good for me, even though I was tripping over my own feet a little bit around ledges. This demo just felt so fresh and different, which I guess it isn't because the original's 10 years old, but I'm gonna wishlist this one and go back and play the first while I wait. Another good one? Another good one? Actually, a great one. Going in blind and not knowing what to expect, this demo was just a series of ecstatic epiphanies for me. I didn't even realize it was a roguelike until I died twice. Roguelike Metroidvanias and I have a great history together, and Trinity Fusion stands out as something different in that space. I remember a couple minutes ago when I was complaining about 2D Souls-like combat, and that's essentially what you've got here, but it's really fast, fun, and responsive, and I absolutely loved it. Also kind of impressed with these creature designs. Half of them are just actual insects and sea creatures and things, but they look really cool and they create a world that I wasn't expecting to walk into, but I need to spend more time in. This game can't come out soon enough. I don't think I've ever seen a Metroidvania with a top-down perspective before. Maybe because if developers did that, it would reveal that a top-down Metroidvania is just an old-school Zelda game. Either way, I don't think Unforgettable Voyage is Metroid or Zelda, and I don't have time to find out. This video needs to end. And here we are, the very last game on my list. After 2 days of thinking, oh, 35 demos, that sounds reasonable, I can do that. What's a demo anyway? Hardly anything. But it turns out that demos are like 30 minutes to an hour long. It's not just like a title screen where you can wiggle back and forth and go, ooh, that feels nice. There are bosses! I've been sitting in this chair for so long I forget what outside smells like, and I think my cat moved out. But Virtue's Heaven, right, it's a game. It looks kinda cute, but it doesn't play very well and it feels unfinished. At this point, I've run out of ways to call a game kinda bad. I tried to get my friend Chastity to do it, but she's pregnant right now and moody as all heck. So just let it suffice to say that I'm not putting Virtue's Heaven on my wish list. And you can go ahead and live your own life at this point, because I'm done! It's finally over! I'm free! So hey, now, hold on. We did find some good ones. I knew going into this that I was gonna like Elypse, Gestalt, and Benedict Fox, but I was totally surprised to discover the Ramsey, Rusted Moss, Teslagrad 2, and Trinity Fusion. And if I have to pick one game from this next fest that I'm most excited about overall, it's probably Trinity Fusion. It's the game I wish I was playing right now, instead of finishing this video. And with these 7 great games and other titles we know are coming out this year, like Silksong, as if Silksong would actually come out this year. That's funny. It looks like a great year for Metroidvanias. Even if playing another Metroidvania right now is absolutely the last thing I want to do. Thanks for watching. Blah blah. I don't have enough energy left for an outro. Patreon. Look, these people give me money. It's great. You should give me yours too. What else? What else? Join my Discord. Doesn't matter. I'm already in the kitchen making sandwiches.